All right, the NFL draft is only a few days away, and tonight we will get ready from a Cowboys perspective. We're going to talk about the top prospects, we're going to talk about some of the top needs, and also we're going to dive into some even day three strategy for the Cowboys. We'll talk all about it on tonight's episode of ADC Sports Dallas Primetime, and we got a special guest. So here we go. What is up, everyone, and welcome into ADC Sports Dallas Primetime. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday through Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central here on Dallas On Demand Sports Talk Network with a lot more content coming your way. Make sure that you check out adcsports.com/Dallas. And as always, remember that Primetime is brought to you by our friends over at freemanmazda.net. We will talk more about them and the ride of the week in a few moments here on the show. But before we do any of that, though, let's get into the Cowboys draft. Let me say hi to ADC Sports draft analyst and the recently, how do I put it? The recent author of the 2023 Tyler Browning draft guide. Tyler, how are you doing, man? Welcome into the show.
I'm doing good, man. It's peaceful to be done with this class. Now I can just sit back, relax, watch how wrong I was on through this weekend, and watch everyone get mad at my evaluations.
That's the way to go. That's the way to go. By the way, if you want to check out Tyler's draft guide, you can do so over at his Twitter account. So make sure you go into at Davidic Tyler, and then you can find he has it linked there in his top tweet. It is completely free, by the way. So make sure you go check it out. He's got his top 100 board and everything. How many players did you look at, Tyler, this year?
Full evaluations, I did 126. I was hoping to get to 150, but things slowed down. Film access didn't turn out to be what I intended, but out of like players I have an idea on, I'd say I'm probably around 142-ish.
That's a big number. That's a big number. So we're going to dive into some of the players that, of course, interest the Cowboys. We're going to talk about some of the latest draft buzz as well. So you can consider this your complete preview for the 2023 NFL Draft going into Thursday. Shout out to everyone who is joining the show. We've got Toxic Tom, Jameson. We've got Mark, Aaron, Charlene, Evans already with the happy birthday wishes as well. And let me tell you, the guy that started this whole thing is right here. It's Tyler. He started the whole thing. Shout out to you, sir. So let's get it started. Let's get right into the thick of it. I wanted to start you off with a big question. As of right now, and this is more of what you are expecting the Cowboys to do rather than what you would rather do. But as of right now, what is your best bet for the Cowboys pick at 26th overall in the first round?
See, this is tricky. Like, this is the 1 year, like I've said it multiple times, this is the most under wraps I feel a Cowboys first round pick has been since I can remember.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not sure they're, like, even down to a certain name yet, but if I had to place money on something, honestly, I'm probably doing Michael Mayer right now.
And I think that is pretty fair. I agree with you with the fact that the Cowboys have been way more quiet, and it goes back to free agency as well. Even before free agency, like the coaching firings happened from one moment to another. We didn't know anything about it, and then they fired multiple coaches. We know about it now, like Skip Pitt, obviously. They fired Joe Philbin. They had George Edwards moved on. He wasn't renewed either. So a lot of surprising moves in the coaching world. And then you trade for Brandon Cooks. No one knew about it. You traded for Stephon Gilmore. No one knew about it either. And I agree with you on Michael Mayer. Here is my reasoning for that. I do think that the Cowboys look at tight end as a big-time need. And also, I think the tight ends might be there at 26th. Do you agree with that? Do you think that the tight ends might be there? And I'm going to do a spoiler alert here of your draft guide, but are high, sir, on Michael Mayer. You have him at 6th overall on your board.
Yeah, so Meyer and Washington, like we talked about this a bit pre-show, like they're realistically not that far off, like in my eyes. Like really what separated them was marginal points on pretty much every category. I mean, the big area that Meyer had on Washington, I believe it was route running, and that was like a point and a half he had on them. Darnell Washington, like he'll come in and he'll be the better blocker right away, but Meyer still has some flashes. I mean, I really liked Meyer. What will he be there? He's more likely to be there than Bijan, in my opinion.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah, I think that Bijan Robinson is going to be off the board pretty quickly, even though Cowboys Twitter or NFL Draft Twitter might hate the idea entirely. But speaking of Meyer, like we've heard a lot of the buzz right now. Like Dane Brugler said on his mock draft that one source told him that they're not passing on him. Matt Miller had something similar on his mock. Mel Kiper had something similar on his. So it does sound like they like him. I think there was another NFL insider. I think it was Mike Golick who tweeted, or Mike Giardi, who tweeted that the league thinks that 26th overall is the floor for Meyer. What about Meyer? Is it just the blocking that makes him the immediate fit with what the Cowboys want? Because I think that we don't have a similar conversation about Dalton Kincaid because he's perceived as the obvious pass catcher, the receiver option. But is it just the blocking that, in your opinion, kind of makes Meyer the fit with the Cowboys, or is it something else?
I'd say, like, I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't think they're really in love with athletic freaks like Darnell Washington. Like, I think they're more sold on their old reliable, for lack of a better term, with guys like Jason Witten, Dalton Schultz. Like, they've shown they could have success in that offense. And I think that's what Michael Meyer brings. I mean, he has some drop concerns, but for the most part, he has reliable hands. He could improve as a blocker, but he's capable. Has a good frame, can extend his hands away from his catch and make tough catches. Reliable, very reliable middle of field target. He's played some special teams. He's been deployed in line, out wide as a receiver. He's flexible in the hips. Very good vertical threat. Not a great athlete, so he's not going to offer you a ton after the catch, but I think they just see the safe guy in Meyer, and that's what would have them taking him over Washington.
Are you concerned at all? I don't know if you heard Bobby Bell's segment on this on 105.3 The Fan, but he discussed several things about players comparable to Michael Meyer, and he was like kind of discussing the idea that maybe Meyer was not made maybe from an athletic standpoint and measurables for the NFL. Do you agree with that? Like, what is the concern there? Because Michael Meyer doesn't look like a small guy or anything like that. So I don't know if there is something there that could be a concern for other people. Toxic Tom, for example, brings up the fact that he was the focal point on the Notre Dame offense and he constantly produced. And I would add, Notre Dame likes their tight ends and they have produced a lot of NFL talent as of late. So I do think that it matters that he gets there to the Fighting Irish and he becomes the instant starter, the standout for the team. I think all of that matters for sure. So I don't know where you land on that.
Yeah, I mean, Meyer didn't wow me athletically off film. Like, he looked like a very middle of the road, like a little above middle of the road athlete. He got a 8.08 on RAS, so it's not bad, but it's also not elite. It ranked 197th out of 1,020 tight ends from 1987 to 2023, so decent there. I mean, but his weight 249, I think it says. Um, he could stand to add some sand to the pants, but I mean, really, if the Cowboys are using him, they're going to be using him as a receiver in year one while he develops more as a blocker. He's not a perfect blocker by any measure, so like, if you give him time, like, if I remember correctly, I don't think Dalton Schultz was all that great a blocker coming out. Like, he was fine, but nothing he was by the end of his tenure.
Nah, I agree with that. I agree with that. And I always thought that Dalton Schultz was even a little bit underrated when it came to his blocking, because people kind of criticized him for that a lot. But he was a willing blocker, and he kind of got the job done a lot of the time. So interesting take there. Interesting comment that you made. Like, maybe the Cowboys are going to use him more as a receiver in year one, you think, while he develops as a blocker in the NFL. I wouldn't expect that out of Michael Mayer. I wouldn't have expected that out of Michael Mayer.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, like, what it comes down to is he's better as a receiver right now. Like, he has flashes as a blocker, but he's not consistent. He blocks a lot better against secondary players who have the defensive linemen, because secondary players don't have the strength defensive linemen do, but they are
Yeah.
more nimble, which is interesting. So, I mean, he lets defenders get their hands into him too often for my liking. So, he did show improvement from 21 to 22. So, he has shown development, but I mean, there's no reason to say he can't develop more.
Yeah. So if you were the GM of the Dallas Cowboys, and we're going to give you the draft card, but we tell you, Tyler, you can only do a tight end. That is the one condition, and everyone is on the board too. I know Meyer is number 6 on your board, but I also know that you were telling us that the difference between him and Washington is too slim. And people say that Washington is this freak that can develop into something really special. Some people are already comparing him to Gronkowski, maybe with the size and everything, maybe being that red zone target that no one can touch. Whose name do you write down on that card if you're given the chance and you're told only tight ends, man?
Let me ask you this: is my job safe if he busts?
Yeah, because we run things without loss aversion around my fictional Cowboys team.
Hey, if my job is safe, give me Darnell Washington. His ceiling is astronomical and everything. Like, freak
Yeah,
athlete, give me him. But if my job's on the line, like, I'm gonna go for the ceiling and Floor and Meyer.
that makes sense. Now, if the Cowboys do not pick a tight end in round one, it does seem like, and maybe this is my impression of what the insiders are kind of suggesting with their mocks and what they also talked about on today's presser, because the Cowboys had their pre-draft presser, by the way, today. In case you didn't check it out, make sure you do so, or go to adcsports.com and check out what Matthew Lennox was on it. He put out multiple articles about it, so shout out to him. Go check out what was said on that presser. But I will say this. Does seem like if the Cowboys do not pick a tight end in round one, they are very likely to do so in round two. Let's talk about one of those names that you think maybe is not getting enough buzz, or maybe you think he's getting too much buzz. Like, what are your expectations for tight ends in round two? What could the Cowboys get on that front? And I ask this because feels like they really want one. Like, feels like they really, really want a tight end.
So what's interesting about this, like, the drop off from a Michael Mayer or Darnell Washington is a bigger drop off. Or wait, let me see if I read this right. Sorry. Yeah, it's a bigger drop off than it would be from those tier one guys to tier two, like Luke Musgrave, Sam Laporta, than
Yeah.
it would be as a drop off from Sam Laporta, Luke Musgrave to guys like Cameron Lotz, who was someone else like that in round 3.
Oh, so for you, you have like a tier one and then big drop off to tier two, and the same for tier three.
So right now it'd be Michael Mayer and Darnell Washington. Kincaid is up there, but injury concerns. Then
Yeah.
I'd say there's a tier, and it'd be Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave. Then a smaller tier drop off to Cameron Latu, Sam Laporta, Luke Schoonmaker. So that's how I have my Titans ranked.
Who is one guy that you think fit what the Cowboys want on their tight ends in round two? Like specifically the fit.
In round 2,
Yeah, talking about that wide tight end that we know the Cowboys kind of want. And I ask this because, like, I asked a former NFL scout this earlier today, and he told me, I don't know McCarthy's version extremely well, but I can speak to Andy Reid's a little bit better. And the Y can be a really advantageous chess piece in it because of matchup reasons in coverage. You can line great ones up all across the formation and use it to give Prescott free information pre-snap so that his post-snap process is streamlined. You can see the way Andy Reid and Doug Peterson use their tight ends, and it has played a massive role in the success they've had with the quarterbacks as coaches. Like, if you want that out of your tight end, who do you think could be that for the Cowboys in round 2?
In round 2, I would probably have to go with Luke Musgrave out of Oregon State. He's an adequate route runner. He's not the best, could use improvement, but he has soft, reliable hands. He strikes a bit low with his hands when he's blocking, but he keeps them between his shoulder pads, so that's good. He's shown the ability to lock up the defender. He can hang on to catches through contact, use his body well on underthrown balls to maximize his catching window. He's been used split out wide, inline roll. He took a reverse, played some special teams. He's shown the ability to crash down and handle a 5-tech against a 3-4. He's a reliable seam threat and middle of the field guy. Like, I'm not in love with the idea of a tight end round 2, but if the Cowboys love him, like, I wouldn't hate it.
That's interesting because Luke Musgrave has been like this riser, right, throughout the draft process. I think that we've kind of seen him get towards near the top of the second round in many of the mocks. So I would be very intrigued to see where he ends up falling. Now, that is talking about the tight ends, and we'll get back to the pass catchers in a little bit here when we get to the wide receivers. But I want to talk about the offensive line as well, because it's been so weird to me this whole draft process. It feels to me, and grinding the mocks kind of confirms this by looking at the graphs. Steve Avila, Osiris Torrance were kind of both expected to go late in the first, and then they've both kind of dropped lately to the second round in many of these mocks. But there's also guys like Darnell Wright who could be in the picture for the Cowboys, and we know that maybe they like him. He was a 30 visit. Jane Slater singled him out as someone that they could like to, alongside Bijan Robinson and Michael Mayer. My question would be, who do you see in that range, maybe besides Torrance and Avila? Which other offensive linemen could be there for the Cowboys to grab at 26 that you would like?
So at 26, like, I don't think I've seen a mock before 26 yet, but honestly, like, I'd be fine with Anton Harrison, tackle out of Oklahoma. Comes from a pass-heavy scheme. He's a good player. The only thing, if you take him, is what are your plans with Tyron Smith? Like, is he just going to wait till he gets hurt? Where's Tyler Smith playing in the meantime? Like,
do you see Harrison at right tackle?
I would say yeah. Let me see which one he played for the most part.
Because one thing that I am assuming for the Cowboys is that Tyler is the left tackle no matter what. And this is just my theory. Obviously, they're keeping things on their wraps, so you never know. But it just sounds to me like they are ready to move on with Tyler at left tackle, and then have Tyron take over right tackle, or maybe ride the bench even if Terrence still is ready to go. So I just wonder, where would Anton Harrison fit in the plans for the Cowboys moving forward?
So Harrison played predominantly left tackle. So there would be need to flip an adjustment over to right. But I mean, you really don't know with offensive linemen how they're going to pan out when they switch sides. Like, we see some people do it seamlessly. We see a lot of people struggle.
Yeah.
I really like Darnell Wright. I wasn't high on him in the beginning, but I talked with the guy in the NFL. He told me things to look out for. I really came around on him, but thing is, again, like, is he playing guard for you? Is he playing right tackle? Like,
yeah,
the Cowboys have questions about their starting offensive line. Like, they have the players. It's just who's going to play where and for how long with injuries.
And I was gonna ask you about Wright, because he has certainly generated a lot of buzz as of late. And I even have my question that he will make it to 26th, because he's rising in many of these mock drafts. I would kind of like to see him at guard. He's one of the players that I kind of watched casually, and he's a force, man. Like he's huge, and I would love to see him use that from the inside. I would love to see him do that, but I don't know like how would that look from the left guard spot because obviously the right guard spot is taken care of.
Yeah. And I mean, him learning behind a guy like Zach Martin, like that would be a kickstart to his career like no other. Like Darnell Wright is a bully, and his tape against Will Anderson might be some of the best tape in this entire class. He put on a show against him.
I'm interested in that. Let me get your thoughts on this. Dane Brugler and Brandon Thorne discussed this on the Athletic Football Show, and I don't remember who said it, but one of them too said that everyone's talking about the Will Anderson game for Darnell Wright, but that how maybe that was a good matchup for Wright because Anderson wants to use that power on you. But maybe if he faces like kind of this bend the edge rusher that can get around you, maybe that could be trouble for Darnell Wright. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that because feels to me like every draft show that you tune into or everyone that talks about Darnell Wright brings up the Will Anderson game because that is the peak of his career, right, in Tennessee. So what do you think? Can he handle those edgy guys on the edge, obviously?
So that's what originally had me so wishy-washy on Wright. Like he put on one of the best performances against a top 5 player in this draft by many people, but he struggled against BJ Ojolari, the bendy edge at LSU.
Yeah.
He didn't do that well. Like he held his own on a number of occasions, but there's definitely room for improvement. Like what I did is I went back and watched more games after the LSU one to see how he bounced back throughout the year. And he did well. Like I'm not sure he really faced another bendy edge rusher like BJ Ojolari, but I'm sure he took that to the film rooms like I'm not going to get beat like this again. Like I'm not letting that happen to me. So I'm willing to bank on that he learned from it as a player and it's like taking it upon himself. Like I can't lose these types of guys again.
Yeah. I'm going to open up a quick parenthesis here, and I'm going to say I'm just now realizing that I'm above your name and you're above my name. But it's too late to change it, or should I change it? I don't know at this point. I'm going to leave it as is. We're going to leave some mystery to the whole show. We're going to get into some Q&A as well towards the end of the show, but shout out to the people who are tuning in right now. Chris says Darnold did a great job on Will Anderson. Someone else mentioned that you play him at guard. If you take Darnell Wright, says Nicholas, you take him at guard. That Guru says, is Darnell Wright the next coming of Martellus Bennett? Wait.
Bennett was tight end, right?
Yeah. I'm wondering what Guru means there. Let's see.
Not too sure.
Yeah, Guru, if you want to clear that up for us. Toxic Thompson's breaking news mode. The Yankees look like ass. Yeah, it's been a bad few days for the Yankees for sure.
The Rangers.
Oh man. All right. Oh, Toxic Tom that he says Washington. Oh, Darnell Washington, the next coming of Martellus Bennett. Do you like that comp?
I mean, it's not awful. Like I'm a person who doesn't like comparisons in general because one, I suck at them, so I'm not going to do them if I'm bad at them. So, but I mean, I've definitely heard worse comparisons.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. It makes sense that it was Washington. Everyone's telling us that he meant Washington. That makes a whole lot sense. A whole lot more sense. Anyways, one more question though for offensive linemen. Avila and Torrance dropping in recent mock drafts. How does that make you? Do you agree with that? Are you kind of surprised by that? Do you think one of them is still going to go super high come draft day?
Honestly, like, Avila was low too for me. Like, he shouldn't have been getting round 1 hype for me. He needs to work as a pass protector. He doesn't have any advanced pass sets like snatch trap. And if you don't know what that is, it's like when a defender gets his hands to your chest, you smash down with your wrist, displacing their hands to get their hands off you. He lacks a fair amount of power. doesn't identify what defenses are doing with their rushes. Like, there are certain twists. Like, if you're watching as a fan, like, you can be like, okay, I know what's coming from this. Like, you've seen your team do it hundreds of times.
Yeah.
Avila doesn't really have a lot of that yet. He's fine, like, but he's not someone that's I'm interested in spending our round one pick on when I expect that person to be a plug and play starter.
Interesting. Looking forward to seeing how they go. Would you mind one of them at 26th?
Torrance, I would not. I would need to see the board, but if they were
Yeah.
white, he was the best player, like on their board, and mine's gonna be way different. But I could be convinced into Torrance at 26.
All right. That's perfect. That's perfect. Let's talk about everyone's favorite position. Let's talk about the wide receivers because, man, there are a lot of them. And I'm kind of expecting at least two of their top 30 visits to be there. Like I would expect Hyatt to be there, Quentin Johnson to be there, or maybe one of the two only. Say Flowers could also be there. Basically, who's the one guy that you think the Cowboys would take at 26th overall? Because Flowers obviously very good route runner, but he's small, right? And Quentin Johnson and Jalen Hyatt maybe are not as refined as say Flowers is, but they've got the size. So it's kind of like a very, very contrasting scenario there for the wide receivers. Who do you think they would get? Because all of those three are visits, and we're gonna rule out Jackson Smith and Jigba because he's not making it. He's not making it.
He stole my answer. I was gonna say that's the obvious one.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like everyone kind of agrees now that he's the top guy. There have been some reports to the contrary, but I don't see him making it out of the top 20.
Yeah, I literally wrote my notes like the obvious answer. It's Jason. If he's there, it's another CD Lamb situation. You
Yeah.
sprint that card in and you don't look back.
Yeah. I would love like if that happened, how you configure your offense because you probably want JSN to man the slot, and that's where CD Lamb thrived last year. So
Yep.
you're gonna push him outside. How is that gonna look, and how is he gonna fare? Like talking about CD Lamb here on the outside only or almost exclusively. So that would be pretty intriguing.
And that brings into my only answer, my only other receiver with the first round grade, Jordan Addison.
All
Like,
right.
where do you play him? Like, he played a lot of slot. We know CD's home's in the slot. Addison has the release packages to beat press, so I think he can handle playing on the outside. But as we know, and I'm sure every other fan, like what the Cowboys think and what you think are two different things. So there's no
Yeah.
telling. But Addison is the really only other receiver that I would pick without thinking at 26. Like Quentin Johnson, maybe, but it would require some thought.
Oh, that actually surprises me a little bit. Those are your only two first round graded wideouts.
Yes, Jordan Addison and Jackson Smith and Jay Watt are only two firsts.
I'm curious, who do you got as second rounders?
Quentin Johnson is third. Josh Downs is fourth. Tyler Scott is fifth. Rashee Rice is sixth. Parker Washington is seventh. Jalen Hyatt is eighth. And Marvin Mims is ninth. And then Zay Flowers is 10th.
Say Flowers are pretty low compared to the consensus. What do you not like, or at least not as much as the consensus about Flowers?
So the thing with Flowers is, and I very well may get burned for it, but I'm going off of draft history. His hype really blew up after the Senior Bowl. And that's a setting where receivers are designed to win. They're designed to make the highlight plays, the Twitter-worthy post that gets all traction. And we see it every year. We saw it, I can't remember the list off my head. I'm blanking. I literally did this list yesterday, but there's short slot guys in the receiver, a Senior Bowl every year who make a splash-worthy plays and get tons of traction, get shot up in the first round of mocks, and they really never go there in the NFL draft. Like, could I be wrong this year? Absolutely. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I could very well eat my words here, but I just don't love a first round player on film from what I saw.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And hey, that is a part of the fun of the NFL draft, right? Being right about some players and being wrong about some of them. That is part of the fun. Toxic Tom says, "Say is Mo's height. Can't have the lollipop guild as our wide receiver corp." Says Toxic Tom. Man, I doubt that he is my height. He is probably significantly taller than me because I'm short. Tank Dell is his leap versus Mark Aaron. You mentioned Tyler Scott pretty high. Is he a sleeper for you?
I don't know if you can classify him as a sleeper. Like, he gained a lot of hype going into the combine. Like, I think
Yeah.
his combine testing, like, didn't light the world on fire like many were expecting, but he's a good player. And, like, I mean, honestly, like, I don't see him getting past round 3 at the latest.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, the Cowboys, I don't know if you caught that part of last night's episode of ADC Sports Dallas Primetime, but Brian Broaddus was asked about how does he think the board could look like for the Cowboys in round 2 when it came to wide receivers. And he had Cedric Tillman, he had Marvin Mims, he had Mingo, and he had Rashee Rice. And I kind of talked about how 3 of those players have the size. What is one big wide receiver that you would love to see in Dallas in either round 2 or maybe even round 3? Like let's open it up to day 2 in general. Who's one big wideout that you would like to see in Dallas?
So, the interesting thing with a lot of these names, Rashee Rice, 36th percentile for height. Parker Washington, 9th percentile for height. Marvin Mims, 27th percentile for height. Cedric Tillman, 81st percentile for height. So if you're looking at size, Tillman's your answer. Who I would choose out of him, it's Rashee Rice. Like, his blocking, like, I know that's not a big thing for block receivers, but his blocking is the best out of any receiver I've ever watched. Like, he puts legit effort into it. He's physical. He bullies defenders. Like, he's a phenomenal blocker. He needs to be better about beating press. And he can struggle with bringing in balls away from his frame, but he's a sudden route runner, knows how to attack the defender and get their flips to hip the opposite way. Decent yak ability, great ball tracker, gets his top gear quickly. He's used in the slot and outside. Rashee Rice is like my guy, but if you're going for height, it's definitely Tillman.
Cool. Sack said Quentin Johnson hands down. Stephen White says Cedric Tillman is the choice. Mark goes with Mingo. What happened with Rice? Like, it felt to me like early in the draft process, everyone was pretty high on Rashee Rice. And then I felt like that has dropped as we have gotten closer and closer to the NFL draft. What is the reason behind kind of like that drop? And maybe it's just my perception. I don't know if you agree with me.
I mean, like, to an extent, I would agree. Like, I haven't seen him as high up in as many mock drafts, but I'm also not actively looking at every player in mock drafts. I'm
Okay.
just like really looking for Cowboys picks and things like that, things I can get content out of, things like that. But I mean, what I would say, it's like, I think it's just like he's becoming sort of a stale name. Like, he doesn't do anything great that'll make him like a first round player. So players are just getting a bit washed under media landscape. Like, if he doesn't do anything great, how can I get content out of him? So that's would be my guess. I'm not totally positive on that, but he's a fairly well-rounded player, and I would love him in Dallas.
Yeah. Okay. It is time. We cannot keep avoiding the following topic, and that is the topic of running backs in the first round, because we have heard all about Bijan Robinson now. We have heard all about him. And the conclusion is he's got it all. Like, from a player perspective, he's ready to go. There are no questions about him. It's all about positional value, whether or not it would make sense. We talked about it earlier on the show. We did not see Bijan Robinson being there at 26th overall. However, Jahmyr Gibbs has also been gaining some traction here as we get closer and closer to Thursday. And Gibbs is kind of like everywhere from late in round one to early in round two, midway through round two. I don't think that Jahmyr Gibbs is getting late into round two in many of these mocks and many of the expectations. My question from me to you, and I will open this up to the chat as well, is would you dislike, or hate Jahmyr Gibbs at 26th overall? Before you give me your answer, though, Tyler, and while people at home give us theirs, let me talk to y'all about our friends over at FreemanMazda.net, because the ride of the week is here. And as always, remember that you can check out their dealership over at Urbig, Texas. Family-owned business, has been so for over 65 years, and you get A-plus customer service with them. And if you cannot go to the dealership, of course, check out the website over at FreemanMazda.net, because in there, you can browse through their wide range of new and used vehicles, go over the features of every car, pictures of the inside and outside of the vehicle. And as always, we need to talk about the ride of the week. In this case, it is a 2023 Mazda CX-30 2.5S preferred all-wheel drive. This one starts at $29,820. Apple CarPlay / Android Auto, rain sensing wipers, adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitor, and a miles per gallon capacity of 26 when you are in the city. That goes up to 33 when you are in the highway. So make sure you check it out and let us know in the chat, would you dislike, or hate Jahmyr Gibbs at 26th overall? Tyler, what is your answer to that, my man?
And real quick, let me double back real quick so I don't sound like a total doofus to the audience. The Senior Bowl receivers that showed out and haven't done a ton: Calvin Austin out of Memphis, Dwayne Eskridge, or D. Eskridge, out of Western Michigan, now with Seattle. And, I mean, your best argument is really Hunter Renfrow in the past 3 years.
Yeah, for the wide receiver, the short wide receivers who thrived in the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, and that's like going back to like we were talking about Zay Flowers. Like right now, I'm just not willing to personally bank on that. He could prove me wrong, but we'll see. And now Jahmyr Gibbs. This is a question.
All right, let me get this out of the way this way. Like 58th pick. How would you feel about it?
Yeah, probably be fine. Honestly, he's probably going to be the best player on my board at that point.
So 26th? Who oh man, maybe this will be kind of a spoiler alert before we get to your pet cat, but who would not have to be there for you to be okay with it?
Who would not have to be there? Oh, that's a number of names.
Yeah.
Let me see here.
In the meantime, like we've got some of the answers here in the chat. We've got a little bit of everything. I lean toward dislike on Gibbs is toxic, like for Gilbert, dislike for Katharina. Gibbs is a baller, says Stephen White. Jahmyr Gibbs, I would not mind, says Chris. Dislike for Inez. So it's kind of a controversial prospect.
And yeah, that comment that he wouldn't have hurt our team, like I don't disagree. Like I don't think he would hurt us in any way. It's just,
yeah,
how much value does he really bring? Like he's could be a Tony Pollard-esque player in year one, similar to how Tony was for us. Like that'd be very good. But am I willing to spend 26 on that when we have other holes? I'm not totally sure. So other players that have to be gone: Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Michael Meyer, Darnell Washington. We can have a conversation. Paris Johnson, Broderick Jones, Peter Skoronsky, obviously Will Anderson, Miles Murphy, Lucas Van Ness, Tyree Wilson, BJ Ojolari would be a conversation. Jalen Carter would have to be gone. A player I'm higher on, Tuli Pelotu, USC, he would have to be gone, which he won't be.
Yeah, that's a surprising name right there.
Devon Witherspoon would have to be gone. Christian Gonzalez would have to be gone. Joey Porter Jr. would have to be gone. And the safety class sucks, so I don't care.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, not all of those names are going to be gone, as you said, but many of them might be gone. Obviously, talking about those that have been linked to Dallas for the most part, like Myers is going to be interesting. Washington is going to be interesting. So we'll see how it all kind of falls on the board. My question for me to you, and we're running late a little bit here on the show, so my bad there, but who's your pet cat at 26th? Like your pet cat.
Ooh. And I can be way off of consensus off this one.
Yeah, man.
I mean, obviously, like I would love JSN, but
yeah. Let's call it a I mean, you can be way off the consensus, but like a realistic player that could be there at 26th.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would say Jordan Addison or Tuli Pelotu.
All right. I like you bringing up Jordan Addison because it feels like he could be there. Jordan Addison is everywhere in these mock draft tests of late and on the boards as well for many of the analysts. I think Daniel Jeremiah has him in the top 10 or something like that, and Dane Brugler is way lower on him than that. So Jordan Addison could be there.
His range really is anywhere from 17-ish to 28. So it's like a wide spectrum, but it's not unrealistic that he's there.
Before we move on to our day 3 gauntlet, sell me Jordan Addison. Convince me of putting his name on the card.
Let me pull up my report here so I can read it to you.
Awesome, because I'm all for adding pass catchers for Dak Prescott. Like I'm all for that. I just wonder about who's a better option because there are likely to be so many of them. Like there's going to be Michael Mayer, the tight ends, Darnell Washington, and there's also could be Quentin Johnson, Jalen Hyde, and all of those guys.
Yeah, so things I would say about Addison. He's a nuanced route runner. You see him actively try to attack the defensive back's blind spots and get them to flip their hips to create the advantage for himself. He works to find open windows for the QB on extended plays. He's not going to offer you much as a blocker, but he shows effort. He has shown he can use his body to shield off defenders at the catch point, although his frame is small. He is rarely put in the situation to have a contested catch due to his route running. He has shown the ability to separate on deep routes. He'll give head fakes, shimmy steps, and various other things that I couldn't name to disrupt the defender and gain separation. Has reliable hands. Has a variety of releases and can beat press with ease. He gets top gear quickly. Has shown the ability to set up defenders to force missed tackle in open field. Doesn't have elite long speed, but it has not yet hurt him to a major extent. He's a phenomenal ball tracker. It is rare, but when a defender is contesting a throw in his face, he remains unfazed and is able to look in the ball. He's shown the ability to play from the slot, and I fully believe he can play on the outside. And he's been used in the backfield as a decoy fair amount.
Boom, 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 boom. You know what I also kind of forgot about with all of the offensive talk? Defensive pick at 26 before we move on to day 3. Defensive pick at 26. Do you agree or disagree that it would likely have to be a defensive lineman? I don't think that the Cowboys have been at least looking at their top 30 visits, for example, they have Emmanuel Forbes in there as a 30 visit. They also have some of the defensive linemen and the linebackers. Who are some players that you think they would consider at 26 on defense when it feels like they're approaching it with an offensive mindset?
So that's the thing we have to take into account is what the Cowboys value. We know on the defensive line they love versatility. They also hate one techniques. Avoid them with like they're the plague. They need depth at linebacker, but not spending a first-round pick on that. They love tall and lengthy corners, and as you mentioned, Forbes is the only one that's really in conversation for round one. I personally don't love him in round one, but I mean, if your board is wiped, maybe trade back and take him. Like, I wouldn't hate that, but I mean, really, like, it depends on what you're looking at. Like, you're probably looking at an edge because there aren't many 3 techs that are worthy of being picked at 26. Like, all the good ones should be gone by 26, unless you're looking at Tuli Pulotu.
Who are we thinking about there? Like, who are those 3 techniques that you're looking at, like, being gone? Obviously, Jalen Carter, but, like, what do you think about Brian Breesy, Kalijah Kancey? Are those the guys that you think are going to be gone?
So Jalen Carter will very much be gone.
Yeah.
Brzee is a question mark. Like, there's so much that goes into his evaluation that I don't have access to, like his mentals, how he's handling his sister, his medicals, all that. Like, I don't have access to, so I can't tell you, and I can't give you a well-informed opinion. Be like, yes, take this guy. Like, I can only tell you what I see off film, and what I see off film is he'd be worthy of the pick. Kancey, I'm quite lower on the most. I have him as a 3rd-round player.
Okay. You almost apologized for it. Yeah.
No, but he probably will be gone by 26. Whether I agree with it or not, different discussion. But the players at 3 tech you're looking at being gone are Carter and Kancey. Brzee is a conversation. I think he will be there.
There you go. There you go. Hey, it's gonna be exciting. 26th pick. Remember that you will be able to follow it live here on ADC Sports Dallas, of course. Well, just a couple more questions, man, because I've taken enough of your time. We've gone long here on the show, but man, we need to get the inside while we have it here on the show. So, 2 questions for day 3. Who are some guys to watch out for based on what the Cowboys like, both defensively and offensively? You can give me a few names. Like, they obviously like, as you say, tall, lengthy corners. They like the measurables when it comes to edge rushers. Who are some guys that you're looking out for in day 3?
So the obvious name on day 3, like, he plays guard. You and I are both big fans of him. Antonio Mafi.
Yes.
Round 4 guy.
Let's go.
I'm fully on board with him.
Violent.
Yes, sir. A.T. Perry at wide receiver would be interesting if he gets around 4. He's quite tall. Not a bad option. At running back, Keaton Mitchell or Dwayne McBride at a McBride is out of UAB. Mitchell's out of ECU.
Dwayne McBride is my guy, man, because I am a big better of UAB. I was last season, at least. Yeah.
Clayton Tune, developmental backup at QB out of Houston for Dak. And now my true sleepers, Nick Hampton, edge / linebacker out of App State. Severely underrated prospect, in my opinion. Right. He has a plethora of pass rushing moves, attacks with a clear and concise plan of attack, high motor athlete, good player, or high motor player, good athlete, very good lateral mobility. Doesn't do his best work against the run, and he doesn't have elite explosiveness. But I think John Oding recently came onto his film. He's like, holy crap, this guy's good. I'm like, yeah, he's really good.
Nice.
I am very high on him. I gave him a 2nd. And I know one scout in the league does have him as a 2nd. A scout with an AFC North team. He's the one who told me to watch him, and I was not disappointed.
There you go.
He's very fun. And then my cornerback sleeper, Isaiah Bolden out of Jackson State. I mocked him to the Cowboys a while back, but 6'2", 32-inch arms, so DQ guy. He ran a 4.33 40-yard dash. He played a lot of nickel, and he has the hips to do so. He can flip his hips and run with anyone. He has return ability, but Dane recently projected him as a safety in his guide, which I could see, but I would also be trying him out at corner first before I moved him.
Okay. All right. So I'll get you out of here with one more question, Tyler, and that is Jake Moody, kicker out of Michigan, in the 4th round, because you're not getting him later in the 4th round. Give me your answer. Absolutely not. That is option A. Option B is could talk me into it. And option C is heck yeah, let's do it.
So, admittedly, kicker tape is next to impossible to come around. So, as you can imagine, I have not watched kickers.
Yeah.
So, I'm forced to rely on stats here. Michigan isn't football school.
Yeah, I had to put that up.
Jake Moody's career percentage low was 25%, but he only had 4 attempts that year, so there's a caveat.
Yep.
Other than that, it was 66.7% and 82.9% this past year. He has never missed an extra point. With all that being said, I'll do it for a 5.
All right. That is fair, sir. That is fair. Well, we'll see if he is there. We'll see if he's there. I pulled up some of the standouts of the 4th round for the Cowboys over the last few years, and those are a lot of big-time contributors like Pollard, Schultz. We had Dorrance Armstrong in there as well. Like these are legit players that the Cowboys are getting in the 4th round. So I have my doubts. I personally am for it. Let's get a kicker. Let's solve that problem. I don't see any other option. So give me him. But anyways, Tyler, thank you so much for taking the time, man, to be with me here on Primetime. For those of you who are watching us right now, make sure that you check out his Twitter account over at Diabetic Tyler. And more importantly, what is pinned in his Twitter account. That is his 2023 NFL Draft Guide, the 4th ever for Tyler Browning. So make sure you check it out on his Twitter. Tyler, thank you so much, man, for joining me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure talking ball with you.
Awesome. And shout out to the people watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Central, and then I will see you again on Wednesday, and then we'll all enjoy the NFL Draft. Each will enjoy it our way, right? You will get it here on ADC Sports Dallas, of course. I will be probably busy doing it in Spanish with my brother, so shout out to him as well. Prime Time brought to you by our friends over at FreemanMazda.net. Do me a favor, hit the like button. Let's get out of here. Thank you, guys.